My wife disappeared for 3 months during a ski trip. Then I saw her in a bar, laughing with her male best friend. This fake death will teach him a good lesson, while secretly sneaking into our home with him, taking her clothes piece by piece. I had almost forgotten what it felt like to be free. Her group of friends kept pouring her drinks, asking her when she planned to make her grand reappearance. She considered it with narrowed eyes. Maybe in a week, once he has completely lost his mind looking for me, then I will appear. I was in the shadows, watching her enjoy her newfound freedom. Then I took out my phone and called a friend who works at the civil registry office. I am going to have Rachel legally declared dead. Are you going to abandon the search? My friend asked with a hesitant voice. I looked up to where Rachel was snuggling against Ross with a bitter taste rising in my throat. My voice was thick, choked. There is nothing left to find. What is the point of looking for someone who is determined to stay hidden? After hanging up, I returned to my private booth. My childhood friend, Alex, saw the stormy expression on my face and passed me a glass. Preston, it has been 3 months. The chances of survival are practically zero. You have to start moving on. I looked at the amber liquid, a high-proof whiskey, and drank it in one go. The burning was immediate, stinging my eyes, forcing me to hold back tears. Alex, I asked with a tense voice, do you think someone would fake their own disappearance just to mess with their husband? He looked at me with a mixture of pity and frustration. What kind of sick question is that? Only a monster would do something like that. They would be better off dead, really. I wiped my eyes and grabbed my coat from the sofa. You are right, I said in a hollow voice. I need to let her go. I went home. The house, as always, was silent. For the last 3 months, I had feared that silence. I would come home and turn on all the lights, make her favorite coffee, place her favorite fruit on the counter. Anything to pretend she was still here. I did not understand. If she did not want to be with me anymore, she could have asked for a divorce. Why fake a skiing accident? Why all that elaborate lie? I sank onto the sofa and picked up the 2 personalized figures with our faces that were on the coffee table. I remembered the day she gave them to me, leaning against me with a playful smile. So, when I am not here, these 2 can keep you company, she had said. Her words from that day mixed with those I had heard that night. Preston used to be fine, but after we got married, it was like a switch flipped. No alcohol, no cold meals, always nagging me about something, so annoying. This death of mine will be a good lesson for him. Maybe he will learn to stop being a pain. Ross poured her another drink. See, I am better. No, we have been best friends for years, and I have never been like this. Totally. You are the best friend a girl could ask for. They called themselves best friends, but under the table their legs were intertwined. The memory turned my stomach. I threw the figures in the trash, grabbed my phone, and sent a group message. Rachel passed away in an accident 3 months ago. A memorial service will be held in 1 week. Almost immediately, my phone was filled with messages from her friends. They have not found her body. How can you hold a funeral? Preston, have you gone crazy? What if she is not dead? If Rachel comes back and sees her own funeral, she is going to kill you. Are you trying to make her angry, Preston? You know what happens when she gets angry. I ignored the first messages and replied only to the last one. She is dead. How can someone who is dead get angry? With that, I put the phone aside and started cleaning up her things. For the last 3 months, I had spent most of my time in the mountain town where she disappeared, looking for her. I had barely been home. The bedroom was practically untouched. I opened her closet and froze. More than half of her clothes were gone. Only out-of-season clothes remained. A bitter, mocking laugh escaped my lips as tears fell. For 3 months, while I was living in a hell of hope and despair, sleeping in my car at the foot of a frozen mountain, she had been coming to our house, taking her things little by little. I opened the security camera recordings on my tablet and fast-forwarded through the last month. At the beginning of the month, Rachel, arm in arm with Ross, entering our house. They left 2 hours later, she with her arms full of clothes. Mid-month, Ross carrying her in his arms bridal style. He did not leave until the next morning. 2 nights ago, both of them sneaking in the dark, leaving just after dawn yesterday. All those days I was miles away, scouring dangerous terrain, shouting her name until I was hoarse. I cried seeing them, not for her, but for myself, for the fool I had been, giving myself completely to someone so vile. While I was sleepless with worry, she was here with her best friend, sleeping in our house, probably in our bed. I clenched my fists, my knuckles white. I struggled to control the rage boiling inside me. A moment later, the phone started to ring. I did not feel like answering, but the person was insistent. I took a deep breath, walked over, and looked at the screen. I opened my eyes in surprise. It was her aunt. I answered quickly. "Aunt Evely, is everything okay?" "Rachel is not dead." A second later, a video appeared on my screen. I opened it. It was Rachel and Ross, embracing, drinking from each other's glasses, with a look so intense it bordered on obscene. My breath caught. My fingers trembled as I spoke. "I know." There was a surprised pause on the other end. Then a low laugh. "And you are still going to have a funeral?" Everyone told me she was dead. I believed them. "A funeral seems appropriate." Evely was silent for a moment. "So now you are a widower?" "Yes," I said. Evely was Rachel's aunt by marriage and a year younger than her. We hardly interacted, but she was the first person to tell me the truth. I owed her that. "Aunt Evely, if you have time, you are invited to pay your respects in 7 days." "Of course, I will be there." Another video arrived. This time someone at the bar was showing Rachel my group message on their phone. She smashed her glass against the table, shattering it. Ross jumped, then hugged her and whispered something in her ear. The bar was too loud to hear, but I saw Rachel's fury visibly melt away. She buried her face in his chest. No doubt, she was furious about the funeral announcement, but it was shocking to see how quickly Ross could calm her down. Every time she got angry with me, it took me a whole night of reflection and a pleading apology for her to even listen to me. I closed my eyes, irritated, and saved both videos. Just as I was about to put the phone down, a call came in. It was Ross. Then I went to Ross's apartment. The door was locked. I rang the bell several times until it finally opened. He was in a robe, leaning against the doorframe. A series of red marks ran down his neck, disappearing under the collar of his robe. "Preston, what are you doing here?" My gaze went from his neck to his face, meeting his contemptuous stare. "I came to invite you to Rachel's funeral. As her best friend, I thought you should be there." Ross scoffed. "Preston, you are her husband. She is missing, no body, no trace, and instead of looking for her, you are burying her. And if she is not dead, you are wishing her dead. What kind of husband does that?" I took out the newly issued death certificate. "She has been buried in the snow for 3 months. I could not find her, so I declared her dead." A humorless smile formed on my lips. "Besides, were not you the ones who told me to move on?" When the news broke, I fainted. I woke up the next morning, surrounded by Rachel's friends, all with solemn faces. "Preston, the area where she disappeared is treacherous. It is almost impossible to find someone. Maybe you should let it go." "Yes, it is too dangerous. You cannot go up there." I ignored them. I booked a flight. I hired a rescue team and disappeared into the mountains for 2 weeks, searching relentlessly. I did not notice it then, but I remembered it now. There was no real concern in their eyes, just a flash of amusement. While I was there, a loud crash came from inside Ross's apartment. His face turned pale. "Preston, do not you dare do anything crazy," he threatened. "Rachel is not going to forgive you when she comes back." Just like the night before, I acted as if I had not heard anything. Ross gave me a furious look and slammed the door in my face. The sound of a heated argument filtered through the closed door. So finding out that her legal identity had been erased was enough to upset Rachel, but she was not going to find me. She had been missing for 3 months. It was only fair that I disappear for a few days too. I grabbed the suitcase I had already packed and asked Alex to book me a hotel room for a week in his name. For the next few days, my only activities were organizing the funeral and hiding in my room. When Alex came to visit me, he had a big smile on his face. "I heard someone is looking for you. She has been searching all over town." Apparently, I looked at the missing person report that appeared on the hotel television screen with a small smile on my lips. "Let her. If I do not want to be found, she will not find me." She was the one who said she would only reappear when I had lost my mind looking for her. Why so impatient now? Serves her right, Alex spat. I do not understand how such a venomous woman can exist. He was getting worked up. "Enough," I interrupted him. "Today is my wife's funeral. I should be sad." I went to the bathroom and looked at my reflection. I had not shaved or combed my hair. I looked exhausted, shattered by grief. Perfect. After confirming with Alex that my appearance was devastated enough, we went to the funeral home. On the way, I handed him a USB drive with the videos of Rachel. Play this when I give you the signal, I instructed. Only then did I send a group message with the address. Evely was the first to arrive. She got out of the car in an elegant black dress, took a white memorial flower from me, and pinned it to her sleeve. "My condolences," she said with a perfectly solemn expression. Then came a stream of family and friends who knew nothing. Their pain was genuine, and seeing it twisted my heart. "Rachel, look how many hearts you have broken with your little game. Today you are going to start paying for it." Then her so-called best friends arrived. Their faces were pale, their hands trembling as they took the white flowers I offered them. Finally, one of them pulled me aside. "Preston, stop this. Rachel is not dead. She has been going crazy looking for you. Have you not seen the missing person alerts on television?" I blinked, forcing back tears. "Do not try to comfort me. I know it was Ross who posted them. She is gone. I cannot live with the hope that she is still alive." She was about to say something else, but I signaled to Alex, who quickly led her to her seat. When it seemed that most of the guests had arrived, I approached the podium and tapped the microphone. "Thank you all for coming today to mourn the loss of my beloved wife." My words were interrupted by a furious shout from the back of the room. "Preston, have you gone crazy? I told you Rachel is not dead." Ross was at the entrance, his eyes burning with rage. "What kind of husband are you? It has only been 3 months since she disappeared, and you are holding a funeral without even finding the body. I will not allow it." I scanned the entrance behind him. No sign of Rachel. Even now she did not dare to show herself. I looked at him from the podium with a cold voice. "You will not allow it. Who are you not to allow it? As you said yourself, I am her husband." Ross's eyes widened, filling with tears. "How can you be so cruel? Rachel loved you with all her heart, and you just declare her dead. What if she is not dead?" My gaze dropped to the visible bite mark on his neck. A small smile appeared on my lips. "Even if she is not dead, an unfaithful wife is not worth my time." As those words hung in the air, I signaled for security to escort him to his seat and continued with the service. I had barely opened my mouth to speak again when a gaunt, disheveled figure appeared in the doorway. There she was, her voice choked with emotion. "Honey, I am not dead. I am back, honey. I am not dead. I am back." Rachel's words resonated in the room with the weight of contained thunder. Everyone turned towards her. Her hair, which she used to wear perfectly styled, now fell in messy strands. Over her shoulders, she wore a shabby coat that was clearly not hers, with the buttons half done, as if she had put it on in a hurry. Her cheeks were red from the cold, or perhaps from shame. I did not move. I fixed my eyes on her without emotion. For an instant, the world seemed to freeze. Then the voices began to rise. Her friends sobbing with relief, a relative murmuring, "How is this possible?" And Evely? Evely just looked at her with a sadness that made me clench my jaw. "This cannot be real," someone said in a low voice. Rachel took a step forward, her eyes fixed on me, ignoring everyone else. Her voice broke the silence again. "Preston, do you not have anything to say to me?" I looked down at the podium. I took a deep breath, feeling the slight tremor of my fingers clinging to the edge of the wood. Then I looked up again and spoke clearly. "The funeral continues." A murmur of shock ran through the room. Rachel blinked as if she had not understood. "How can you? I am alive." "Not to me." Rachel took another step, but the funeral home guard stood firmly in her way. There was no violence. No one touched her, but her presence was clearly not welcome. "This is crazy. I am your wife," she shouted, her voice broken. No one came to help her. "My wife died 3 months ago on a mountain. What you are now, I do not know, but you have no place here." The emotion on her face transformed into disbelief and then into a silent plea. But I did not flinch. A part of me felt I was watching an act. Another, darker part, was enjoying the show. One of the attendants approached her courteously and led her towards the exit. Rachel resisted for a moment, then gave in. As she crossed the doorway, she turned her head one last time. We looked at each other. I saw something in her eyes I did not expect: fear. The door closed. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then, Evely rose from her seat and approached the podium. She stood beside me, brushing my arm. "Do you want me to say a few words?" I shook my head slowly. I took a breath and looked at the assembled crowd. I spoke calmly, as if nothing had happened. "Thank you for coming today to say goodbye to Rachel. What we saw a few minutes ago was something difficult to explain, but it does not change the essential thing. My mourning is still real. The Rachel I knew, the one I loved, no longer exists. Some bowed their heads, others watched me in silence, unable to pass judgment. The ceremony continued, but it was no longer about Rachel, it was about me. After the service, I went home alone. The lights were still on as I had left them. The coffee I used to make out of routine was cold on the countertop. The silence embraced me like an old friend. I sat on the sofa and looked at the flowers someone had left by the door. White, funereal, pure flowers, the same ones Rachel had rejected. I did not know what was going to happen now. I only knew that for the first time I was not afraid to look ahead, because she had come back like this, but I was no longer the same. I woke up at dawn to the muffled sound of the television still on. It had been playing the local news on a loop, where the story of Rachel crashing her own funeral had already begun to circulate, as if it were a bad joke. But it was not a joke, it was my life. The whole world was starting to find out, and not from my voice. I turned off the television, grabbed my suitcase. It had been ready since the previous week, and I left without looking back. I did not leave notes for anyone. I just sent a brief message to Alex. I am disappearing for a few days. Do not tell anyone where I am. Minutes later, I was on the road, heading north. There was no definite destination, just a place where the silence was louder than the memories. I drove for hours until I reached a small town near a lake where no one knew my face, my story. I rented a room in a simple hotel with thick curtains and a faint smell of old wood. The receptionist did not ask for too many explanations. Paid in cash, under the name of Alex. Secure. Once inside, I turned off my cell phone and put it at the bottom of a drawer. The world could spin without me for a while. 2 days passed. During that time, Rachel began to search the city for me, according to what Alex told me on a brief visit. She went into bars, coffee shops, even went to the local police station. She said she was worried, that she did not understand why I had left like that. She cried in front of the cameras. She said she loved me. Missing person alerts began to circulate on television. My face, my name, my last known address. I saw one of those ads by chance on the television in the hotel's dining room. I turned it off. I felt a bitter mixture of irony and disgust. 3 months ago, when she was really missing, or so I thought, everyone told me to let her go, that she probably would not come back, that the mountain had swallowed her. Now that I decided to disappear, it was suddenly a national tragedy. The hypocrisy turned my stomach. In the hotel room, the silence was thick, but different from the one at home. This one did not hurt. This was a silence that did not lie to me. No one had slept in that bed with me. No one had used that shower or left traces on the sheets. It was a neutral place, a pause in the middle of the storm. When Alex came to visit me, he brought fresh news and a bag of decent food. Rachel is looking for you like crazy, he said between bites. She has been to your house. She went to the hospital. She even tried to talk to your lawyer. She is really scared. I am not interested, Preston. What you did at the funeral was brutal. I am not saying she did not deserve something, but that was a public emotional execution. I looked at him coldly. It was symbolic. Legally, she is still dead. Was not that what she wanted? Alex did not answer. He just leaned back in his chair with that expression that was a mixture of discomfort and respect that he used to use when I was right, and he preferred not to admit it. Do you know what is the most ironic part? I said after a while. She said she would come back when I lost my mind looking for her, but she did not wait. I was only gone for 2 days, and she already started to despair. Maybe it is not for love. Maybe she just hates not having control. Exactly, I replied. It was not sadness I felt. It was clarity. For the first time, my actions were not motivated by pain, but by conscious choice. I was moving away because it was the healthiest thing I could do. One night, I looked out the hotel window. Outside, everything was covered in a thin layer of snow. Ordinary people were crossing the streets with scarves and hats, oblivious to my little personal drama. No one looked at me twice, and then I knew. If I did not want to be found, no one would find me. I stayed in that hotel for 7 days, 7 days without contact, without apologies, without explanations. When I finally turned on my cell phone, there were over 80 missed calls from Rachel, dozens of messages from her friends, from her lawyer, from relatives who had never called me in the 3 months she was missing. I ignored everything, except one, a brief email, with no subject, just a video attachment. It was Rachel, sitting in what looked like Evelyn's room, without makeup, her eyes swollen. She said she was not going to defend what she did or justify it, that she did not expect forgiveness. She just wanted to see me one last time on the mountain, where it all began. She had written, I could have ignored it. I could have deleted it, but I did not. 3 days later, I parked my car in the same alpine town where I had last seen her before her disappearance. The air was cold, dry. The snow was falling as if time had not passed. The chalet we had rented together was still there. She had booked it again. When I opened the door, I found her standing in front of the fireplace, hugging herself. I thought you would not come, she said without looking at me. I did not come for you, I replied. I closed the door behind me. I came for me. To close this. Rachel nodded slowly. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun. She was wearing a long-sleeved t-shirt and wool pants. Nothing like the elegant woman who faked her death. Just a broken, human, real woman. I sat on the sofa without asking for permission. 3 days, I told her. That is what I am offering you, not one more. And I want the truth. Do not lie to me. 3 days, she repeated. And I will be brutally honest. The first day we hardly spoke. We cooked separately, ate in silence. The fire crackled in the fireplace, but it did not warm the distance between us. We slept in separate rooms. There were no questions, just glances that did not meet. The second day, I started talking. I told her what it was like to search for her for weeks in the ice, among nameless bodies, with dogs, with helicopters, with hope as punishment. I told her about the cold coffee every morning, about the figures on the table, about the rotten fruit I kept buying out of habit. I told her everything, without raising my voice, without crying, like someone describing a nightmare that no longer hurt. She listened without interrupting. Sometimes she would close her eyes, sometimes she would bite her lip. When I finished, she asked, Do you hate me? No, I hate how she cried in her room. I did not go to comfort her. The third day, finally, she told me her version. Ross convinced me that you were becoming paranoid, controlling, dangerous. He told me that I was no longer myself with you, and I believed him. I wanted to escape, but I did not think about the real damage. It was a game, a cruel joke. I looked at her in silence. And now I understand that you were not the problem. It was both of us. You would squeeze me. I would run away. We would hurt each other, and the worst part is that we called it love. There was a long silence between us. The fireplace had gone out. Do you regret it? I asked. Everything, except this, she replied, pointing to the place. Having faced each other here without masks. The next day we left in separate cars. There were no hugs, no reconciliation, no hatred. Just a silent truce, a real closure. And for the first time since it all began, I felt free. I went back home. The same place that had swallowed me whole for months. The same door I opened every night hoping for a miracle. The same sofa. The same kitchen. But now there was no one left to look for. I had said goodbye, not with flowers or hugs, but with the truth that hurt more than any burial. Rachel was no longer an unknown. She was not a mystery that tormented me. She was just a woman I had loved and from whom I had freed myself. I turned on the lights in the living room, one by one, out of habit. I was no longer doing it to pretend she was still there, but because the silence still had an edge. It was less sharp, yes, but not entirely harmless. That night, I slept in our old bed for the first time since she faked her disappearance. The sheets smelled musty, but they no longer smelled of her. Everything was just as I had left it before going to the mountains for the last time. I took the 2 personalized figures out of the trash. They were still there, though covered in dust, and I placed them facing each other on the table. At night, I watched them for a long time. They no longer represented a couple. They were just 2 figures, 2 people who had once shared something and then became strangers. The first night, I slept badly. I woke up several times without nightmares, but with that feeling that someone was watching me from the doorway. It was the memory, not a ghost. The second night, I sat on the living room floor with an old box of photos between my legs. I saw the pictures from the trip to Lisbon, from the wedding, from our first apartment together. I forced myself to look at them one by one, not to cry, not to curse, just to accept them for what they were, fragments of a past that no longer belonged to me. In one of the photos, Rachel was sitting on my lap, laughing with her head thrown back. The woman in that picture seemed completely different from the one I had faced at the chalet. More than different, a stranger. I put it aside. The third night, I invited Alex for dinner. He brought wine, as always, and a mediocre pizza from a pizzeria that still believed that too much cheese was a virtue. "So you are not missing anymore," he joked as he came in. "I was just taking a vacation from the disaster," I replied. We sat in the kitchen. We did not talk about Rachel for almost the entire dinner. It was a relief. We talked about his new job, about an absurd series he was watching, about the neighbor's cat that kept using my porch as a bed. But in the end, inevitably, the topic came back. "So what are you going to do now?" he asked. "No more funerals or fake disappearances. What is next?" I was silent for a moment. "I do not know, but for the first time in a long time, that does not scare me." Alex nodded, like someone who knows there is nothing more to say. After he left, I was alone again. But this time the silence did not feel hostile. It was just that, silence. And I was starting to live with it. I did not expect to see Ross again. I thought that after the funeral, he would have scurried away like a cockroach when the light is turned on. But no. Sometimes those who live in the shadows cling more tightly to the darkness. It was Evely who wrote to me first. "Come, there is something you need to see." She was not a woman of many words or dramatic gestures, so I drove to her house without asking questions. She received me with her usual elegance. Black blouse, short, carefully styled hair, an impassive expression. She offered me tea. I refused. "It is on the desk," she said simply. On her computer screen, there was an open folder. Videos, documents, emails, all with familiar names, files that, according to her, were hidden on an old hard drive that Ross had left forgotten in his previous apartment. Before he temporarily moved in with Rachel during my supposed widowhood, I opened one of the videos. Ross in close-up, with his soft voice, that voice he always used to manipulate everyone. He was filming secretly from a corner of the bar where he used to meet with Rachel and her friends. In the background, I could hear phrases that I now recognized clearly. "Preston does not understand what it is to have fun. He is obsessed with rules, with control. He suffocates you, Rachel. I would give you freedom. I would make you feel alive." She was laughing, but her laugh, seen now, seemed less authentic, more nervous, as if she was not entirely convinced. I switched to the next file. A conversation recorded without consent, this time in my own house. Rachel was saying that she only needed a couple more days to take the last of her things. Ross was laughing. "He will never know we were here. And if he suspects, what is he going to do? Cry in front of the mirror?" I closed the file. My hands were shaking. Evely was watching me in silence. "I know you have been through enough, Preston, but I thought you deserved to know that you were not crazy, that you did not imagine it all. How did you get this?" Ross asked me to keep his old laptop months ago. He forgot it. He never opened it again. Today seemed like the right time. I took a deep breath. What hurt me the most was not the betrayal. I was already used to it, but the cynical way they played with my mind. They made me doubt my perception. They made me feel guilty for caring, for loving. "Where is he now?" "No one has seen him since the funeral," Evely said. "From what I hear, he quit his job. Changed his number." I nodded. He knew the game was over. Before I left, Evely touched my arm. Her gesture was unexpectedly warm. "You did not lose Rachel, Preston. You lost her a long time ago. It is just that now you can accept it." I left with the files and a copy. Not for revenge or blackmail, just to have physical proof that my pain had a root, that it was not an invention, that I was not weak, I was deceived. When I got home, I turned on the television. Rachel was still giving small, more humble interviews. She was apologizing publicly, but she did not talk about Ross. She did not name him. She erased him from her story as if he had never existed. That surprised me. I turned off the television, sat on the sofa, thought, and understood that Rachel had also been a victim, not entirely innocent, of course, but manipulated, seduced by someone who knew how to find her insecurities and turn them into weapons. I had just been collateral damage, and this time I was not going to be left in ruins. It was Saturday morning, and the sun was shyly peeking through the blinds. The air had that smell that only exists in houses that have stopped waiting for someone. For the first time, it did not bother me. I had breakfast alone, without rushing, without the television on, without notifications. I did not even check if Rachel had given another interview. It no longer mattered. The truth was complete on my desk, compressed into a folder labeled with a name that now barely deserved my contempt: Ross. I spent the rest of the day doing what I had avoided for months. Cleaning, but not a superficial cleaning. I got rid of everything. Photographs, shared objects, travel souvenirs. I put a few things in boxes, more out of courtesy than necessity. There were some of Rachel's clothes that I had not yet noticed were there, hidden at the back of the closet like remnants of a previous life. I folded them calmly, without resentment, and placed them in a cardboard box. I labeled it with a single word, past. I left it by the door. I had no plans for the night, so I decided to go out for the first time in a long time, not to escape, but to stretch my legs, to breathe some air without memories. I walked to the center of town, where a new small funeral home had opened, modern on the outside, sober on the inside. I had heard that its owner was young, discreet, with a low voice and a sharp wit, the kind of person who did not ask more than necessary. I went in without knowing why. The woman at the reception looked up when she saw me. She must have been in her early 30s, fair skin, straight brown hair pulled back in a long braid. She wore thin-rimmed glasses and a calm, chronic expression. "How can I help you?" she asked in a slow voice. "I do not know exactly. I guess I am just visiting. Are you going to die soon, or are you here to say goodbye to someone?" The question brought an involuntary smile to my face. "You are always this direct. Only with those who seem too serious. You have to balance the energy," she said, spinning in her chair. "My name is Elena. You, Preston." She nodded as if she had confirmed an internal assumption. "Well, Preston, if you did not come here to die or to mourn someone, you could at least have a coffee. There is some left over today." I accepted. Minutes later, we were in a small side room, drinking lukewarm coffee from black, unbranded cups. There was a comfortable silence between us. We did not need to fill the air with empty phrases. "Do you work here alone?" I asked. "Most of the time, yes. The dead do not require too much attention. It is the living who make the noise." "That is true." She watched me over her cup. "You lost someone." "Yes, but not in the usual way. Infidelity, lies, disappearance." I looked at her. She smiled faintly. "I work with grief. I can smell it on the skin." "It was all of that," I admitted. She nodded slowly, as if she already knew. We did not talk much more. I left with a strange, light feeling. It was not immediate attraction, not even curiosity, just peace. For the first time, I had talked to someone who did not treat me like a victim, or a monster, or a poor widower, just as someone who is still alive. Rachel wrote to me only once after our meeting on the mountain. A short message, with no emoticons or please. "If you ever want to talk seriously, without punishments, just to understand, I am at Evely's house on Tuesday afternoons, no more than an hour." Promised. Weeks passed, and one random Tuesday I showed up. Evely said nothing when she opened the door for me. She led me to the back garden, where Rachel was sitting with a blanket over her legs and a cup of tea in her hands. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup. She did not seem nervous, just tired. "You came," she said simply. "Just for an hour." She nodded and pointed to the chair in front of her. I sat down without taking my eyes off her. The silence was awkward at first, then it became necessary. "Thank you," she began. "For coming, for not shouting, for everything." I did not reply. "Sometimes I wonder if I ever really loved you," she continued. "And not because I think it was not real, but because I never learned to love you well." I took a deep breath. I did not do it right either. I confused care with control. I thought that protecting you was loving you, but sometimes I was just squeezing you so you would not run away. She nodded slowly. "Ross made me feel like I deserved more. He made me think you were taking something away from me that I had never actually known how to handle. Freedom." "Yes," she said, looking down. "But in the end I realized that I was not free with him either. It was just another version of the same prison disguised as a party." I leaned forward. "Why did you not ask for a divorce?" "Because then I would have had to admit I was running away. Faking my death was easier, more dramatic, more effective, selfish, stupid. I know. It was not just selfish, Rachel. It was cruel. You made me believe you were dead. You made me search for you among corpses. That is not fixed with an I am sorry. I am not looking to fix it, just to say it." A moment passed. The wind gently moved the leaves of the lemon tree in the corner of the garden. A bee buzzed among the flowers. For an instant, everything was normal. Everything was human. "There is something I never told you," she murmured suddenly. "I was pregnant when I left. I felt the air leave my lungs." "I did not know," she added quickly. "I found out later, but I did not want to tell you. It seemed cruel, and when I lost it, I knew it was not my place to be a mother of anything." The silence that followed was so brutal, it almost hurt. I could not look at her. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve to know that you did not just lose a wife. You also lost a child, even if it was one that was never born. I stood there not knowing whether to feel anger or sadness or just nothing. Do not hate me, she whispered. I do not, but I do not love you either. Rachel closed her eyes. For the first time, she seemed at peace with that. Is that it? I asked. Yes. I stood up. I did not offer her my hand. I did not hug her. I just walked towards the door. But before I went through it, I stopped. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for listening, she replied. And that was the last time I saw Rachel Harper. I did not think about Rachel the next day, or the next, or the one after that. Not because I had forgotten her, but because finally she was no longer living in every corner of my head. Her presence had been replaced by an even more powerful idea, real silence. Not the one I pretended in order to survive, but the one you feel when you stop needing the other person to come back. I spent more time outside the house. I walked, I read, I started writing again in an old notebook I had abandoned. I did simple things, my things I did not share with anyone. One afternoon, while walking downtown, I passed by the funeral home. I was not planning to go in, but Elena was outside lighting a cigarette with her fingers covered in fingerless gloves. Her braid fell over one shoulder, and she was wearing a dark green wool jacket. She looked at me with that expression of hers between curiosity and skepticism. I thought ghosts did not return to the place where they died, she said. I am not a ghost, just one that walks slowly. She put out her cigarette and motioned with her head. I have half an hour. Are you coming in, or did you just want some cheap poetry? I went in. We sat in her small kitchen, among poorly cared for plants and a coffee maker that made more noise than coffee. So, she asked, how does it feel to have buried someone who is still alive? It does not feel like a crime, more like an act of mercy. And are you still alive? I think so. Elena studied me for a moment. You know, most of the men who come here are broken, but they do not admit it. They hide behind logic, sarcasm, or alcohol. You are just tired. I am rebuilding myself, I said. And which part do you rebuild first? I thought about it. The one that does not depend on anyone. We were silent. It was not uncomfortable. I have an invitation, she said suddenly. A talk I am giving at a library on how to talk about death without seeming like a psychopath. Do you want to come? Is it a date? It is a talk, she replied. If it becomes a date afterwards, it will not be my fault. I smiled. I had not done that without thinking in weeks. I went, not because I wanted to impress her or because I was looking for something. I went because I wanted to be near someone who expected nothing from me. Elena spoke about grief with a mixture of rawness and tenderness that left everyone in the room motionless. She was not trying to comfort. She was not selling hope. She was just telling the truth. After the talk, we walked together to my car. Thanks for coming, she said. It is not often that someone breathes again after a symbolic death. And what if I do not just want to breathe? What if I want to live? Elena stopped. Her dark eyes met mine. Then start by not carrying any more graves on your back. We said goodbye with a slight brush of our hands. Nothing more. But that night I knew I had made a choice. I no longer wanted to remember Rachel. I wanted to discover who I was without her. It happened without ceremony, without tears, without hugs. On a cloudy morning, I arrived at the lawyer's office with the documents in hand. Rachel was already there, sitting across the table, her hands clasped tightly, as if she were afraid of falling apart if she let them go. She was dressed formally, with no jewelry or makeup, just herself, exposed. We did not greet each other. There was no need. We signed, one by one. Each stroke of the pen was like sealing a wound that had been open for too long. There was no drama, just a silent end. Do you want to keep the figures? She asked suddenly, without looking at me. No, you keep them. They do not mean anything to me anymore. She nodded. She did not argue. Do you regret loving me? She said suddenly. Her voice was more trembling than she intended. I looked at her calmly. I do not regret not having loved myself enough. There was no answer, just the sound of the papers being filed by the lawyer. We left without another word. The sky was still gray. It was not raining, but the air was heavy, as if it too was holding something it needed to release. I walked aimlessly through streets that were no longer so familiar to me. I went into a bookstore, browsed a couple of titles, nothing caught my eye. I left. When I got home, I found an old envelope on the table. My name was written by hand. The handwriting was unmistakable, Ross. Next to the envelope was a brief note from Evely. He gave it to me a while ago. He said it was for you if you ever wanted to read it. I hesitated. My fingers hovered over the paper. In the end, I opened it. Preston, I was never your friend. You know that. I think you always knew. I envied your life, the calm, the house, the way Rachel looked at you as if you were her center of gravity. I wanted to convince her that I was better, freer, more fun, but I just wanted to destroy what you had, because I did not know how to build anything for myself. I made you doubt yourself. I made you feel guilty for caring, for loving too much. And now that it is all over, it is just me, with nothing. Maybe you hate me. That is fine. I deserve it. But I just want you to know this. You were never weak. You were betrayed. Yes, but you kept standing, and that destroyed me more than any punishment I could have planned. I closed the letter with trembling hands, not out of anger or sadness, just from an immense weight that suddenly no longer belonged to me. I did not keep it, nor did I burn it. I left it on the table along with a bunch of old keys that Rachel had forgotten. I did not need any more reminders. That night, I stopped by the funeral home. Elena was arranging some wilted flowers in a box. She was wearing her hair down for the first time, a gray scarf hanging over her coat. When she saw me, she raised an eyebrow. Tough day. Final day. She nodded without another word. Then it deserves. We sat in her small kitchen. We did not talk about the past. There were no mentions of names or questions. The silence, for the first time in a long time, did not hurt. It was freedom. A year passed. A year without fake funerals, without tracks in the snow, without broken figures or ghost calls. The city changed little, but I did not. Or maybe I did. I moved differently. I slept better. I did not dream of her. I no longer remembered her voice when I woke up. And when her name sometimes came up in conversation, I let it pass as if it no longer had an anchor. My life had found another way to exist. Elena and I did not fall in love like in the movies. There were no fireworks or scenes in the rain, just long dinners, unhurried walks, and a tacit agreement. Neither of us would save the other, but we could accompany each other without hurting each other. We started a small business together. It was not planned. A friend of Elena's, who worked at an association for missing persons, told us about people who wanted to say goodbye to those who had never been found. Parents, siblings, partners, people with no body, but with grief. We created something different, a discreet, intimate space, without crosses or tombstones, just memory, respect, silence. We performed personalized rituals, small altars, tributes, ceremonies without religion or spectacle. Elena called it the living among the dead. And it worked, not because of the name or the aesthetics, but because it was real. We did not promise comfort, only companionship. One afternoon, while I was arranging some candles in the main room, a woman approached the counter. Her face was sharpened by sadness, and she was holding a crumpled photograph in her hand. She was young, about 30, with dark hair, pulled back. She looked at me with worn-out eyes. "I want to bury my ex-husband," she said in a low voice. "He disappeared years ago, but I cannot keep waiting for him anymore. I need closure." I asked her to take a seat. We talked for over an hour. I listened to her story. I did not judge. When she left me the photo and a piece of paper with a few words to read during the ceremony. Elena entered the room and found the picture on the table. "Who is it?" "Someone who did not come back. Like so many." She nodded. She sat down across from me. "You know who you buried that day." I thought for a moment, an illusion, an ideal, a love that became a cage. And now? I looked at her. I took her hand without squeezing. Now I bury what hurts, and what is left, I take care of. Outside, the afternoon was falling slowly. The light came through the large windows, golden and soft. The fresh flowers filled the air with a faint scent. There was no music. It was not needed. I stood up, lit one more candle, and watched the flame for a moment. Life did not go back to being the same. It was better.